Thanks for everyone being here today. I appreciate it. I hope everyone has a terrific Thanksgiving, which is coming up in short order. On Election Day last Tuesday, I won the constitutionally one-person, one-vote election by more than 1,500 votes. Now, there were more people cast their ballots for me than any of my other three candidates. I won the election fair and square. And just like in 2014, I won the election fair and square with less than 50% of the vote. So the election should be over. Now, I greatly appreciate the ongoing trust and confidence in me expressed by the voters on Election Day. Thank you very, very much. It's a tremendous honor to represent you, and I'm very grateful. You know, Maine is a small state, but we're a great state. Washington is a very big place, and it's a mess. I'll continue to be that strong and effective voice for everybody in Maine, and I'll continue to fight like heck in Congress to get things done for Maine. Now, last Tuesday, I won the election against tremendous odds. There were about 18 out-of-state special interest groups that spent millions and millions of dollars falsely attacking me in my record. The same thing happened in 2014. It happened again in 2016. But this year, it really got crazy. But still, more people voted for me than my opponents. But each time I won, and I won fair and square. Our second district voters proved that they can't be bought and they can't be fooled by this out-of-state money. Now, here in Maine, we've used the constitutional one-person, one-vote system since our state's founding in 1820. Not only is it the law, but it's also just plain common sense. The candidate who receives the most votes wins. For generations here in Maine, our parents and grandparents and beyond have used this uncomplicated, universally accepted vote counting to elect their town selectmen, their school board members, and they do it without controversy. Maine and national leaders like Margaret Chase Smith, Ed Muskie, Olympia Snow, and George Mitchell have all been elected by the long-held, constitutionally legal, one-person, one-vote will of the people. And you know, we normally receive the election results that night, or maybe the next day if it's a really close race. Now, starting with my re-election to Congress last week, which I won by receiving more votes than any of my three opponents, the Secretary of State's office here in Augusta has started a new confusing vote counting process which might violate our United States Constitution in electing public officials for federal office. Now, we know that the Maine Supreme Court has already determined that ranked voting violates the Maine Constitution for some elections. That's why it was not used last week in the general election to choose our new governor and our state legislators. And that's why by not using ranked voting last Tuesday for the governorship, we knew the results of those elections that night. Now, it is critically important to always stand up and protect our constitutional right to vote at the state and also at the federal level. But that can only happen when vote counting is fair and it complies with both the Maine and the United States Constitution. Now, we already know that the engineered ranked vote counting system is illegal under the Maine Constitution to elect public officials for state office in the general election. Again, that's why it was not used last Tuesday to select our new governor. It's now time to find out if the ranked voting system is illegal also under the U.S. Constitution to elect public officials for federal office. If we do not have a resolution to this basic constitutional issue, how many more election results for federal office held here in Maine will be held in question, and possibly throughout the country? How many times might a voter ask him or herself, did my vote count once when someone else's vote counted 2 or 3 times. Now, we know the good people of Maine's 2nd District re-elected me to Congress on election day by the constitutionally legal one person, one vote system. What we do not know yet is if the will of the people will be overturned by this chaotic and confusing ranked vote counting process that's going on in Augusta. Now, since winning on election day, I've heard from hundreds and hundreds of honest, hardworking fellow Mainers. They've been following this political vote counting circus here in Augusta. And one of them summed it up perfectly when he asked me, Bruce, or he said, Bruce, I can see this mess happening in Florida or New York, but not Maine. I thought we were better than this. I agree. There'll be some loud political activists who will say that I'm not, or I am concerned rather, about this vote counting matter because I might lose the rank vote contest. That's simply not true. It's just absolutely not true. Just like those false attack ads that folks were fed for months up here. During the past years, the people of Maine have got to know me pretty well. They've seen how hard I work for them, and they've watched how I'm driven by doing what is right. But I'll tell you, this could be a heck of a lot easier on me if I just walked away from this vote counting mess. But what kind of message would that send to our kids? Absolutely the wrong message. The people of Maine's 2nd District have put their trust in me to tackle tough issues and to do what's right, not what's easy. Not addressing this important constitutional matter would be completely irresponsible and not doing my job. Yesterday was Veterans Day, the time of the year where we make a special effort to thank everybody who's kept us safe and kept us free. I hope all of us continue to thank our veterans throughout the course of the year. It was about 242 years ago. There was a small group of 13 British colonies that were stretched along the eastern shore of this new world. And they banded together and did something unheard of at the time and unheard of in human history. They stood up and they were very bold and they declared to the world that we are Americans and we're giving birth to a new country, one nation under God. And that we Americans are free, and independent at the time of the most powerful nation on earth. And that we Americans would no longer be robbed of our unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of our happiness. And then the freely and fairly elected representatives of we the people in this tiny nation struggling to form itself created the most unique and important civil document in all of human history, the Constitution of the United States of America. Now, our Constitution clearly lays out the foundation of our representative republic. It keeps us grounded in the rule of law so that we know who we are as a people and as a nation. And our Constitution continues to bear fruit by helping to bring out the goodness of Americans and the goodness of America. Leaders, not governed by a king or a queen or royalty, or the freedoms, our way of life, the safety of our families, the economic prosperity and the jobs we have, all of it is based on our constitutional system of the people giving consent to be governed by their duly elected representatives. That means voting must be fair and it must be legal. During our 242-year history as a sovereign nation, 1.5 million men and women in uniform did not return home from the battlefield. They sacrificed for us, they died for us and for our freedoms, and for the rule of law that is detailed in the United States Constitution, including our voting rights. It is my solemn duty, it's my responsibility to vigorously protect those constitutional rights, all constitutional rights for all Americans. Earlier today, papers were filed in federal court here in Maine to start the process to make sure our sacred and fundamental voting rights are protected. Every Mainer, every American must have the confidence that his or her vote to elect public officials for a federal office. I fully support and have joined that constitutional process now winding its way through our legal system. I am honored and grateful for the opportunity to serve 650,000 of the most honest and hardworking fellow Mainers you could ever find in the 2nd District. And I thank them for re-electing me to Congress last week. And I look forward to continuing our important work on their behalf. Thank you all very much for being here. If you have any questions, this will be the time to ask them.
Congressman, what do you say to a voter in the 2nd District who says, the rules were clear, I voted under the rules, maybe I would have voted for you as opposed to one of the 2nd or 3rd place candidates? You know, how do you respond to folks who say, we knew the rules going in, we voted that way for a reason?
Well, the courts don't get involved, Paul, as you know, and they deal with theory. They get involved when there's a result. It is clear, because the Maine Supreme Court has made a determination that rank voting is illegal in the state of Maine in some elections. That's why it was not used to pick our legislators here in this building and our governor a week ago.
Wasn't that done before an election?
What we don't know is if rank voting is also illegal to elect a federal official under the U.S. Constitution. Now, you don't proceed with a challenge to something like this unless you have a result. We have a result. I won the election a week ago by, we don't quite know exactly how much, by about 2,000 votes. You folks have all reported it. And that's what I won. I won the same type of election in 2014 by less than 50%. So we know that is legal under the constitutional one-person, one-vote rule. So the timing is right to do this right now.
But wasn't the legal challenge that threw this out for the general election for the governor's race done before there was an actual vote with an outcome to challenge?
There is no constitutional deliberation. The courts have not determined if this vote counting system is also illegal for a federal election under the U.S. Constitution, Paul. That's what we're challenging.
Bruce, there are lots of independents in this race. They may have voted for you or Jared Golden if they didn't know their ranked choices wouldn't be counted as as you want. So I'm just curious, what do you say to those people who?
Well, that's one of the problems, is that when you go into this convoluted, chaotic system, you don't know who you're voting for. We don't know who the final 2 vote getters are. So when you go in the election booth, you don't know what the choice is that you're voting for. And so it is about time the people of Maine and the people of America know, is it illegal to use this confusing system to elect someone for federal office under the U.S. Constitution? We know it's illegal to use this system to vote for state officials in the general election. That's why it wasn't used to elect the governor.
Are you saying, Congressman, that Maine voters didn't understand what they were doing when they voted on November 6th? They didn't understand the ballot because we've been through a primary election this way. We've had 2 years of news coverage about ranked choice voting. We've had 4 different court cases about ranked choice voting. And we heard from city clerks and town clerks that voters were largely very informed and understood how the process worked. So now you're saying after the fact, Maine voters didn't know what they were doing?
No, that's what you said. What I said is that this system has been determined by the Maine Supreme Court to be illegal with some elections here in the state of Maine.
But it was silent on congressional races. The state Supreme Court said that the Constitution in Maine is silent on congressional races and on primaries.
That's correct. It has not been decided.
So you're only telling half the story.
What I'm telling you, Scott, I'm trying to answer your question.
Well,
okay? And
tell the whole story.
The answer to the question is the Maine Supreme Court has determined for state officials, public officials, being elected in a general election, this process is illegal. What the people of Maine do not know is if their votes are being counted legally and fairly when they cast a vote for a federal office under the U.S. Constitution. And that's why the papers were filed this week.
I'm trying to.
Does it bother you though that people have voted already and you bring this action? Does it bother you that you don't want their second and third choice votes to count?
What bothers me is that we do not know if this vote counting process is legal under the United States Constitution. My job is to make sure I uphold and defend the Constitution. This is the most basic and solemn right we have as a country. If we cannot fairly and legally elect our representatives, whether it be here in Augusta or down in Washington, then what kind of country do we have? This has never been challenged. We do not know if those people who cast their votes legally, and if they're being legally counted.
Isn't it too late to do this? You're
Of
at this
course
action
not.
now?
No.
Well, you do it after the vote, why not before?
Well, we have a result. Courts do not base their opinions and their procedures on theoretical for the most part. They want a result. We have a result. I won the election on November 6th on election day by about 2,000 votes. We have that result. And now this rank voting process may be overturning the will of the people in violation of federal law. That's what we're trying to find out.
But it has
The fact that this exists also because of the will of the people, including those in the second district who put this into place and voted on it twice. Does that have any bearing on this?
Well, remember, the job of the courts is to make sure that any process dealing with any of our constitutional rights, in this case our voting rights, is legal and fair. We know that it's illegal in Maine to elect the governor and the legislators here in a general election. That is illegal. The Maine Supreme Court has decided that. What we don't know, Don, is if the folks in the state of Maine, in the second district, who cast their ballots for me or someone else, they don't know if their votes were cast legally and if their counting of their votes is legal for a federal office, which a member of Congress is a federal office, or a United States Senator. We don't know if it's legal under the U.S. Constitution. So it would be nice if we had referendums before the people of Maine that we knew were constitutionally sound. We don't know that to be the case.
The
Are you
federal
faulting
gov-
the Secretary of State at all for doing this?
Am I doing what?
Are you faulting Secretary of State Dunlap for proceeding with this?
No, we are proceeding to make sure this is legal or illegal under the U.S. Constitution, God bless. We know it's illegal in the state of Maine to elect our governor and to elect our state senators and our state our houses of representatives here in this building. We don't know if it's legal to elect a member of Congress or a senator under federal law. So we need to find this out. Don, I'm not casting aspersions on anybody. What I'm saying is that it would be irresponsible to ignore something that could violate the voting rights of all Americans.
If this judge rules against
You had a
you,
question, Scott, you had a question.
go ahead.
Do you still think that you have a chance to win if ranked choice voting continues?
Well, I won 7 days ago in the constitutionally legal one-person, one-vote vote counting we've had here in the state of Maine since 1820. I won that election, just like I did in 2014 with less than 50% of the vote. What we're trying to figure out is if the ranked voting process is legal under federal law in electing a federal public official. That's what we're working on.
But do you see a pathway to win if?
It is so confusing, and this looks like Florida. I mean, where are we now? We're 8 days into this? 7.5, 8 days into this? We have no idea. But we knew on election day that the governor was selected. We knew on election day, I believe, all of our state representatives were elected appropriately, or if not, sometimes they're close, you find out the next day. This circus is still going on. Been going on for 7 days. This is like Florida. It's like New York. It's like Louisiana. We want to find out if this process is legal.
this federal court in Maine rules against you, will you accept that ruling?
Go ahead.
Well, if you win the lawsuit, should you win the lawsuit, won't we have to have a whole new election process? Because people would have voted differently perhaps had they known their ranked choice votes weren't going to count. You can't say that they would have voted for the independents.
Well, when folks go in the voting booth now, they don't know what the final two candidates are gonna be at the end of a ranked voting contest like this. That's one of the problems. People have no idea when they go in the voting booth. But I'll tell you, this legal procedure is for the people of Maine. How do you have a system where you go into the booth, it's one of your most fundamental constitutional rights, and you don't know if the vote you cast or the counting of the votes that have been cast are legal or not? We know they're illegal under Maine state law for general elections. We know that. What we don't know if voting for a federal official under the US Constitution is also illegal. We're trying to figure that out.
When did you say to yourself or to your staff, it looks like this is gonna happen, I'm not gonna make the 50%, ranked choice voting is gonna kick in, so loose the lawyers?
Well, it didn't go that way, Mal.
Well,
I mean,
it
on
takes
election,
time to put a
I'm-
complaint together.
I'm trying to answer your question. On election night, it was clear that no one was going to get 50%. And at that time, it looked like we were going to win, it's been confirmed, we'd win the constitutionally legal, both at the state level and the federal level, one person, one vote. And then all of a sudden, this circus started, and that's the time we said, hey, wait a minute, this has not been tested at the federal level. My job is to help the people of Maine. I'm not doing this because I got nothing else to do. This would be so easy to walk away from this. It would also be irresponsible. The people of Maine deserve to know if the votes they cast are legal and if they are counted legally. They're illegal in the state of Maine in general elections for the governorship and for our representatives here in the State House. We don't know if they're illegal in electing a federal official under the US Constitution. That's what's driving it.
Do you intend to abide by the judge's ruling regardless of how it turns out for you?
Well, let's see what this happens. I mean, this is now in the hands of the courts. This is the way the process should work. The people of Maine deserve to know if their voting rights are protected. That's all this is. This is exactly the way it's supposed to happen.
So do you intend to run it up to the Court of Appeals?
Who has not asked a question?
I was just wondering, over the weekend, there were allegations about potentially ballot tampering lodged by the Maine GOP, and also shared by your campaign, and I was just wondering if those are still concerns for you.
Well, it's always a concern if you have any kind of a malarkey that gets involved with our election process. And the biggest issue we have right now is, my goodness gracious, are all of these votes that were cast, more went to me than my candidates, I won, but are all these votes cast on both sides for a federal office under this new chaotic vote counting system? Are they legal? We don't know. We know they're illegal under state law for some elections. We don't know if they're illegal when you elect a federal representative or a federal office holder like the U.S. Senate under federal law. We're just trying to figure that out. That's what we're trying to do.
What's the harm to your voters? You did a bullet vote for yourself, and your vote stays with you the whole
How
time.
do you know that?
Well, you said it in the lawsuit.
Oh, I did. I don't tell anybody how I vote. You know that better than anybody.
Well, but what's the harm to your voters here? I mean, their vote stays with you no matter what.
Mike, you've read the legal briefs, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
Have you?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Have you?
Well, of course. Why don't you go back, take a look at the legal briefs, let's see what the courts decide. That's a legal question that you're asking.
Does the federal government tell any other state how to conduct its elections?
All we know is that we need to find out, this is the first example in the country, where the voting to elect a federal office holder under the US Constitution could be illegal. I can't imagine anybody in our state of Maine, I can't imagine you folks in the press, not wanting to know if the voting is legal or illegal. That's what we're trying to get at. Thanks, everybody. Have a great Thanksgiving.